回到我们的论坛 ，Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back。接下来我们要进入下一个场次的讨论，主题是人工智慧与网际网络治理风险。We now move on to our next session, focusing on artificial intelligence and internet governance risks. 在这个场次呢，我们要探讨 AI 在网络治理当中的应用，以及可能带来的风险以及挑战。同时也会去思考如何善用 AI 的技术来提升网络安全以及治理的效能。In this session, we will examine both the opportunities and the risks of AI in internet governance and how AI can be leveraged to enhance security and governance effectiveness. 这个场次的主持人是人工智慧科技基金会詹婷怡董事长，同时也是国家通讯传播委员会的前主委。The moderator for this session is Ms. Nicole Zhang, Director of the Artificial Intelligence Foundation, who is also the former chairperson of NCC. 接下来就把时间交给主持人。I will now give the floor to our moderator, Ms. Nicole Zhang.
Good afternoon, everyone. Because we have one panelist online, so I will speak to her first. Okay, Miriam, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Because we have many local participants, so I will use Mandarin later. Then later I will introduce all the panelists first. Then I will invite the first panelist to present. Then you will be the second one. Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good.
好，谢谢大家午安。
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to our session. The theme for our session is artificial intelligence and internal governance risks. We do believe AI is beginning to reshape the landscape for many industries. Therefore, many issues have been coming to our attention. For example, the truthfulness of the information, algorithm, cross-border transaction, and so on and so forth. So with the development of AI, we do believe there will be increasing concerns about the risks presented to the internet through AI systems. We have 4 panelists for our session, so I would like to quickly introduce all of them. The first one to my right, Mr. Thomas Wan. He is consulting leader at Ernst & Young Advisory Services. He is someone with very rich experiences. He is also a professor at Zhongzheng University. Not only that, he was a chief financial officer at Sinopac Bank, and he used to work at MIC. He was a senior manager at MIC, so he covers many different fields. The one next to him is Mr. Arian Hong. He is CEO of IHH. When it comes to implementation of AI, obviously AI is something important for a lot of vertical industries. 2 days ago, we issued a report, and we do believe AI is not only being implemented starting from 2026. As a matter of fact, AI is becoming more and more popular. At IHH, they deal a lot of AI-related issues, and he personally has worked with many large manufacturing companies. Therefore, he can speak to his personal practical experiences with the adoption of AI. Ms. Zhou Guanru, Deputy Secretary General of Taiwan Association for Human Rights. And Ms. Zhou Guanru has been participating in the drafting of Taiwan Transparency Report, digital human rights, corporate accountability. So when it comes to digital human rights, as well as the National Health Insurance Database, both for their association, both for their association, for Ms. Zhou herself, they have been paying very close attention throughout the years. And our speaker online, Miriam Estrin, he is Senior Policy Manager and Global Lead for Content Regulation and AI Responsibility at Google. So, as mentioned already, he is someone responsible for policy, content regulation. Prior to working for Google, she used to work for the government at the State Department. He worked at an office that is responsible for writing policies, especially foreign policies vis-a-vis Muslim countries. And she has written many books, and she was an invited scholar at Yale University. So again, she has a wealth of experience, which she will be sharing with us during her intervention. Because we have very limited time, so I would like to allocate between 8 to 10 minutes for every panelist, and then we will begin Q&A. So I'll start with Mr. Wang. Please show my slide. This is a very good topic, but let me begin with my conclusion. Because we want to make sure we alert your attention to the fact that we haven't been doing a good job when it comes to addressing the challenges presented by AI. And Taiwan is not alone. We know that Donald Trump will be flying to mainland China to discuss two very important topics with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. One is Taiwan, and the second will be AI. So when it comes to the development of AI, we know technologies is developing in leaps and bounds. I know you probably have been participating in the development of the internet governance. For example, DNS management, stakeholder mechanism, multi-stakeholder mechanism. In 2020, with the advent of AI, we originally thought that by using our original model, we will be able to solve all issues related to AI. But nowadays, we are facing a dilemma, and that is with the development of AI technology and applications, we are always lagging behind when it comes to AI governance. Previously, network, internet is regarded as a tool, but now AI is looked upon as something that can help us improve our productivity. So, for some scholars, they do not believe AI is a system with intelligence. But for other scholars, they do have high expectations for AI systems. AI is AI an existential threat for the human race. Well, obviously, there is a full spectrum. There are people who are very optimistic, but there are people who are very pessimistic. Therefore, after Biden stepped down, Donald Trump took office, actually AI had become a tool that the U.S. government is using to something that can wield as a weapon to the U.S. benefit in geopolitical situation. Obviously, right now, from Japan, Korea, Singapore, the EU, multi-stakeholder dialogues are becoming very important because we cannot look to the government alone. Japan hasn't come up with any penalties, and in the case of Italy, they have set up the government office trying to regulate AI, but in Korea, they resort to a completely different approach. So if you ask different people, you get different answers. And we talk a lot about AI. For example, today, we know that Homeland Security Department issued a report. And this is minimum element. This is an AI security assessment report. We know that there's a Hiroshima AI progress. It is all about supply chain management. Why? Because they are talking about sovereign AI. They are not talking about geopolitical tensions. We know that last year, J.D. Vance wanted the European nations to use US-built AI models, but EU decided to come up with their own AI models. Well, because we know that even among Western nations, different countries seem to have different value systems. Therefore, development of technology, development of industry in different Western countries are moving in different directions. We know that MISAS is a new system that was developed in the U.S., but Donald Trump decided to vet the system before the government began to use it. So we know that there are a lot of issues that we need to address when it comes to AI governance. But no one can tell you for sure eventually what AI will look like. Therefore, we do need to use a massive amount of data to train the AI system. Therefore, in the early days, China was a closed society, but in order to develop its own AI model, enhance its competitiveness, China has resorted to open source AI system. But the U.S. has gone the other way. Between China and the U.S., we have seen two different approaches. Taiwan obviously has our own dilemma when it comes to geopolitics, but we cannot afford to lag behind. For example, last week, there was a speech talking about the gap between China and U.S. is between 6 to 10 months. So there was a question when China will be catching up with the U.S. Once that happens, then Taiwan will be under tremendous threat because it's all about how quickly we will be able to respond to AI-generated attacks. Because we are talking about a huge amount of attacks happening within a short period of time. I often see our legislative yuan in session. I believe that NSI should be engaged in fundamental research. Unlike the proposal made by some legislators that NSI should set aside money for developing AI. I am against that. Therefore, among Western nations, or if we compare Western nations to countries such as China, Southeast Asia, Japan, well, each country is different. And when it comes to AI, we need to make sure the AI system is equipped with Eastern languages. We know that China has come up with its own Chinese language AI model. But should we just use the model developed in China? I don't think so. So that's one of the first dilemmas that we are faced with. Secondly, top-down AI governance is one proposal. division of labor and authorities assigned to different parties. And given the AI development life cycle, we hope that it can help facilitate the industry development and we can help safeguard human values. Towards the end of 2022, early 2023, there was a paper published by Oxford University, and they, according to the paper, all the things that are predicted by the paper have become a reality. And therefore, those written in red have already happened. But what about the remaining 5 items, which is in black letters? Will they happen very quickly? I do believe so, because AI has generated a lot of emerging applications. About 1 to 2 years ago, I attended seminars in Taiwan, and some people in Taiwan believe that AI governance is an oxymoron term because it would impede the development of AI technology. However, now what we need to do is to make sure we put some guardrail around the development of AI. Otherwise, we will lose control of the AI models we develop. Obviously, we want to develop AI for good, and we all know that if you train your AI, then your AI will become just like you. And in terms of deep learning, machine learning, we don't know eventually what they will produce. 30 years ago, I studied natural language processing or Prolog, but now we are talking about machine learning. When it comes to black box, sometimes it's very difficult or impossible to decipher what's inside. Therefore, stakeholder community is very important. In EU, they have Euro Horizon 2030 project, and what they do is they work with psychologists, sociologists, legal experts, and computer scientists to get involved. But in Taiwan, we do not do that. So in Taiwan, we have scholars hired by the government to review the projects. So against the international trend, I'm quite doubtful whether we are able to expert the AI models that are developed here in Taiwan. So every time when I have the opportunity, I made a call for the AI model developed locally in Taiwan to be better and stronger. And we know that we do have a national health insurance coverage. And in EU, they do believe that AI will be particularly useful when it comes to popularize medical services. And so they do have AI stack, and at the bottom, they want to improve their infrastructure. But at the top and application layer, they think about using AI systems in healthcare services. Although we understand that there are a lot of risks, this does not mean that we want to get rid of AI entirely. So we really need to make sure we provide enough incentives. Obviously, different countries have different incentives. In Asia, there have been international ranking, such as AI index. I think the strongest country when it comes to AI is China, followed by Korea and Japan. Well, what about Taiwan? Taiwan has our Silicon Shield. We are a very important semiconductor hub for the entire world community, but we really need to focus on the model development. Because we know that we have been reading Chinese martial arts novels. And a lot of Chinese martial arts novels tell you read to begin by reading Buddhist scriptures before you can improve your competency. And this goes to show that we really need to prepare ourselves in terms of the basic competencies first before we can begin to talk about developing advanced AI models. So in the case of the U.S., and the EU, they have their ways of dealing with identity authentication. And what I would like to emphasize is that in terms of international cooperation in the development of AI models, this is happening in a very big way because I have observed a lot of international organizations. 2 years ago, there was a private sector organization. They hire a lot of experts, but now it has become an official organization. Experts exchange experience when it comes to development playbook, guidelines, and regulations. And I put a question to Nicole, to Professor Liu Jingyi, who is doing that type of work to get together experts from different fields in order to set guidelines for development of AI. We try to put some guardrail around the development of AI, organization, roles and responsibilities. We need to have standard operation procedure. However, at the end of the day, our models still need to survive. So instead of just saying all the right thing, AI should be echoing our values. At the end of the day, we still need to make sure our AI models will be competitive. International standard organizations have a set of tests for AI systems, but EU disagree. They believe the organization should create an environment so that scientists or engineers will be given free rein when it comes to developing AI models. Well, nowadays, we are identifying some problem. For example, the first problem is LLM as a judge. If you tried to judge an AI system, but the problem is you hire another AI to serve as the judge, then this is not very good. So obviously, the result will be unpredictable. Another problem is token mixing. There are two major tokens, blockchain tokens, and another one is AI system token. Therefore, a lot of people believe these will be very precious resources, but those resources seem to be used repetitively. And so if you continue to use the same tokens to train AI, this will lead to the dumbing down of your AI system and also AI illiteracy. In other words, you don't really have the competency to understand what AI is all about. Therefore, this will give rise to manipulation of the AI system, and we will not identify the best approach with which we can collaborate with AI. And also paradigm shift. Last week, there are experts saying that in 2023, we pose question to AI, AI will come back with the answer. And in 2024, 2025, we talk about contextual prompting. And today, in 2026, we are talking about agentic harness engineering. We do not tell you, we do not ask question anymore. We simply assign a task to AI, and AI will autonomously carry out the task for you. So in terms of how to design a process with which to solve the problems, AI can do everything together. I do have some background in engineering. In the early days, we need to write our own programs. But nowadays, if you do agentic engineering, the AI will be able to generate a better code in a much more efficient manner. So Therefore, how do you control the process? And we do not have a well-aligned metrics with which to assess the AI system performance. Google, OpenAI, they have the upper hand. For example, Hugging Face, they have a lot of AI governance tools. But the thing is, we do not know when should we be using what specific governance tools. Final thought, at the end of the day, when it comes to AI governance, we need to make sure we use this as a building block. So, because we don't know how AI will evolve in the future, we need to improve our AI literacy, engineering literacy, law literacy, and we need to have good awareness of potential risks. In Taiwan, we classify risks into different tiers. But in the US, they look at risks for different sectors. But in the case of the EU last week, they passed AI omnibus, and they wanted to become. They wanted to make sure there will be a clear division of labor, of sectoral regulation, and overall AI governance. In the case, the U.S. has tightened its grip on AI regulation. However, because there are state laws and sometimes state laws, there are already 6 states which come up with AI laws, including Colorado. So right now, the U.S. is trying to unify all state laws and to make sure state laws will not be running counter to federal laws. Life cycle is another very important concept. With funding, support, and deployment along the way, there will be a lot of hoops that you need to jump through. And therefore, now people are saying that control supervision should be embedded from very early on in the process. In other words, beginning from design, you should already be thinking about control and supervision. And obviously, multiple stakeholders are also need to get involved in order to validate the effectiveness of AI models, including safety, effectiveness, and observability. Over 4 years, there are a lot of different opinions, but now U.S. and EU, for example, last week the EU has issued clear guidelines about how to improve transparency. For example, watermarks need to be present and privacy materials should not be presented. So once they have become common practice, then we believe we will be guided toward this correct direction.
Sorry, I hesitated to interrupt Mr. Wang, but as we can see in his sharing, Mr. Wang has covered multiple dimensions under the theme of AI governance. Of course, based on the foundation of multi-stakeholder model, but there are also a variety of issues worthy of our attention. For example, sovereignty, resilience, regulatory framework, content veracity, and other factors. In particular, Mr. Wang said we need to consider the entire life cycle of AI deployment. We focus on AI-enabled design, but we need to be mindful of what kind of scenarios really want to introduce different AI-enabled applications. And we focused on responsible AI in the past, moving all the way to trustworthy AI. For example, Anthropic had a case where it was engaging with the U.S. Department of Defense. So that's a good framework for our discussion. But we'll also be talking about content-related issues. So, of course, we are happy to hear from Ms. Miriam Estrin, who is the Senior Policy Manager and global lead for content regulation and AI responsibility at Google. So let's give it over to Miriam. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today, and I'll pick up on a point that Mr. Wan ended with about the importance of transparency and how Google looks at content responsibility and trust in the AI era. And like everything we do at Google, it's anchored in our mission, and it's a mission rooted in free expression about making the world's information accessible and useful. There is tremendous opportunity with AI to build transformative technology with breakthroughs we're already seeing in science and medicine and tools that empower and help people. But we also know that people are concerned about whether they can trust the information that they're seeing online. Google brings decades of experience to this challenge, and we're applying it and adapting it to the AI era. Before we dive in, I want to start with an important conceptual point. At Google, we look at information quality holistically. So we say not all generative AI content is deceptive, and not all deceptive content is made with generative AI. And this range of examples on the screen, if you go back, illustrates how what I mean. So the first is a real photo. It was called a photo of the Louvre heist detective. It turns out he wasn't a detective. He was just a kid in great tailoring, but it wasn't made with AI. It was still deceptive. The second is a real photo from a mission. And we asked AI to augment the color in the background. So I ask you as an audience, is that an AI image or is that a real image with enhancements? And how do we communicate that properly to users who see it online? And then the last photo, it's a real photo of the real moon landing, but a bad actor has put a fake made with AI label on it to try to mislead users. So again, the array of cases that helps us understand the challenges we're dealing with. So how does Google approach it? On the next slide, you can see we do that through a set of overlapping and complementary approaches, an overall program that includes partnerships, programs in communities, media literacy tools for our users, and it also includes cutting edge tools that we're building around provenance that helps users understand the origin of content and how it was made. And it's where I'll spend most of my time today. And the next slide, I'll start with Google's cutting edge technology called SynthID. It's a watermarking technology that is attached to media generated by our AI tools at the point of generation. It's really impressive. It's an invisible watermark that's embedded into the very pixels of this image that you're seeing. So you can see it doesn't detract from the enjoyment of the overall work, but we can detect when it's there. So unlike someone sticking a made with AI label on an image, you can't fake it. And unlike a visible label that maybe someone can crop out, it's very hard to remove. So we say this technology, SynthID, is robust. That means SynthID remains even if, next slide, a user crops it, changes it to grayscale, rotates, edits, adds stickers all over it. You can even take a screenshot of this image of a koala on your phone and we can still tell you that SynthID is there. So that is what we mean by robust. It's an impressive technological achievement, and it's something that works in complement with an industry approach. And that's the next set of slides around C2PA's content credentials. So if you go to the next slide, I'll tell you how it works. C2PA content credentials is a metadata approach. It records also how the origin of content was made, and it travels with the content file and can record transformations over time. There are real benefits to this approach. It's an open standard. Google was on a steering committee that developed the technology, but we sit on it with many other companies in industry. It's interoperable. Any company that signs up can use it. It's secure. It's secured by cryptographic hashes and signatures, the same technology that secures the open web. It makes the metadata and the content locked together like two pieces of a puzzle. This is how I like to think of it. Those two pieces of a puzzle fit just so. So any attempt to manipulate the content or tamper with it means that the puzzle pieces won't fit together anymore and it will be evident. So we say the benefits of C2PA are that it is open, interoperable, and tamper evident and secure. Another benefit of these tools is that content credentials that are embedded in a piece of technology at the time of creation can be read by others in industry when the content is disseminated. So the two examples I have here are content generated by Google's AI tools, but the metadata is attached to them and then read by other companies, by other platforms. So here TikTok has read C2PA signals from Google, and on the right, LinkedIn has read it, and they've shared those signals with users. We also, on the next slide, remain mindful of research on the challenges with visible labels. So we think very carefully about how we share those signals with our users. What we know from the research is that simply applying a label can add to user confusion, and it can have the unintended effect of reducing overall trust of content online. So let's think of an example here. Let's say a startup that has built this pair of headphones that's in the middle column on the right. And they're a startup, so they don't have many resources, and they're using AI for the photo shoot, to change the background, to alter the color scheme. Should that company need to label this image as made with AI? What happens when they do? The user starts to get confused. Are the headphones themselves fake, or where was AI used? So that's what I mean when I say we need to be thoughtful about that approach. And on the next slide, I also want to say we believe it can be just as important to send signals to users about authentic content, not just content that is created by AI. Google's Pixel phone was the first smartphone ever to embed C2PA's content credentials into images that are snapped by our native camera app. So it documents when content has been captured by a camera. And you can see one example of why that's so important here. This is an example of a real image taken by New York Times photographers in Iran, and it was falsely called into question online. There were claims that it was made or enhanced by AI. The post got enough attention that the New York Times had to issue a statement affirming that it was real. If this image had been shot with Google's Pixel camera, we could have sent that signal to a user and online to confirm that it was really shot by a camera. And then on the next slide, I want to tell you about some of the work we're doing to give users the ability to detect whether content was made with our tools. We have opened up Synth ID detection to users. So you see an image online, you can ask Gemini if the content has a Synth ID watermark, and it will engage with the image. We have many tools like this on your Pixel phone. You can, any image you see online, you can circle it, it will search against the search index and help understand when content first appeared online. So this is a place that we're really investing in to help users build their media literacy skills and help build trust in the ecosystem. I'll end on a couple points. One is for our online platforms, think YouTube, no matter how content was made, our community guidelines apply across the board. Whether it's our policies on hate speech or harassment or deceptive content, those policies apply no matter whether the content was made with AI or made without AI. So that's how we view content on our platforms. And finally, I'll end on the importance of this message. Asking, is this AI generated, is not the same thing as asking, is this trustworthy? We think it's important to set that higher ambition around trust to really meet this moment. Thank you, and looking forward to the discussion.
Yes, thank you, Miriam. Yes, thank you for your presentation. I think after two other presentation, I will get question back to you. Okay, thank you. 谢谢Miriam， 她帮我们
Thank you, Miriam, for sharing with us. Google's insights and relevant tools, approaches, content policies, including the C2PA content credentials, which is worthy of our reference because these tools are already being implemented and adopted. Now, I will give the floor to Ms. Arian Hong. Well, time is tight, so please keep it brief. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Miriam and Mr. Wan, because I am fortunate to be able to build up on what has been said. NTUH, the company I work for, is a company providing video solutions. Also, I share with you our company's experience, and I welcome feedback from all of you. Now, with our video solutions, we actually work with highly regulated sectors like finance, education, and law. So we see that there are multiple use cases available for clients to introduce AI in different scenarios. So we want to introduce AI-enhanced video solutions to increase the business value for enterprises. Now, within our video-based solutions, sometimes we only focus on how we can implement or introduce AI tools on videos. So in terms of compliance in Taiwan, you need to ensure that throughout the video solution, we need to focus on the different stages of videos. There are different procedures conform to. For example, what kind of help can AI provide? For example, during the video conferencing area, we can actually verify the liveness of the speaker. For example, whether there's any cover or obstacles on the face. We have to detect whether it is a real human being. And we can also have facial recognition, whether the face matches with that on the ID card. And we can also match the identity verification. And as Marian just mentioned, throughout the video conferencing, we have to think about how we can introduce visible and invisible while machine-readable watermarks. So the watermark mechanism will, of course, destroy the quality or undermine the quality of the content to some degree. Because we have like dozens of images being transmitted per second. If every one of that picture is being watermarked, then you also need to transmit the unique ID and data information in your transmission and meeting ID. That actually the meeting quality, the visual quality will be degraded. But that you will see that all the images have been processed. So, not to mention, we need to comply with the law. You need to prevent the videos from being tampered with or being pre-recorded. But the regulation said you cannot post-edit your video. Sometimes there may be conflicts in what the laws try to protect. So I just mentioned that throughout the video conferencing journey, we need to go from identification of faces, matching with IDs, the content being discussed, being transcribed and recorded, and we can use Gen AI for further classification, inferencing to generate digest to-do list or meeting minutes. So now there are 4 basic types of AI in this regard. For example, in video conferences, we use the so-called identification AI. There are also analytical AI and also Gen AI and agentic AI. So these 4 types of AI need to be discussed separately. Now, on this flow chart, you see that in the general scenario, we can use identification AI to identify whether the participants are real human beings, are the right persons involved, and whether they have been replaced by someone else with their due e-signature to generate an non-disputable evidence. And now post-meeting, we can generate a digest, to-do list, QA list, to follow up on what has been said during the meeting. These are the things that can be created post-meeting. But unfortunately, we also see that a lot of people are using Gen AI to fabricate things from thin air. Now, of course, we can only use identification AI or analytical AI as a shield against Gen AI-oriented attacks. But unfortunately, just now we heard that given the current regulatory requirements, we actually struggle to protect ourselves against AI-generated attacks. But criminals can only think of malicious ways to attack, right? So we actually cannot catch up with the illicit actors. Now, based on our experience over the years, if we want to deal with AI-oriented fabrication or crimes, we should still use AI to combat AI-enabled threats. As you can see on the slides, maybe we can actually take different sides of the person in the photo, to generate thousands of variations with different angles, brightness, and exposure settings in order to better identify whether this speaker is a real human being. And then we can authorize this person accordingly. So they are using AI to combat AI-oriented risks. But if you want to play the good cop, there will be a lot of restraints because you need to take into account privacy regulations, GDPR, because some data really are highly confidential. So can we really capture multiple angles of the same person? And more terrifyingly, maybe there's a hacker or a criminal trying to download your picture on your Facebook. So they can use Gemini to create images that looks pretty much like you, and they can tamper with your images. So if we don't have a tool to protect ourselves against this threat, it can be very terrifying. And there are also ethical considerations. If you don't have this kind of protection mechanism, how are you going to guard yourself against different kinds of AI-generated risks? So, of course, companies want to be compliant, but criminals are not bound by, they don't fear these kind of regulations. So let's say if things comply with law, we can think about the use of agentic AI to make up for human weaknesses in terms of our senses. For example, we can see it can help us identify maybe differences in signals, maybe which happened just in a split second, but we can know differences in signal quality, and it will send an automatic reminder to users. And also, law permitting, we can also have other use cases. For example, we may be incentivized to use Gen AI. But there are some sectors that are highly regulated. So we need to consider some of the regulatory constraints. So technology may be abused by those who feel they are not bound by technology. So we have agentic AI, identification AI, Gen AI. If they can be used for valid and reasonable reasons, then probably we can solve a long-standing problem. For example, facial recognition, liveness, being, but what about identical twins? They look identical. So you need to use other biometric information, such as fingerprint or retina. So you cannot rely only on facial recognition, otherwise you only have 80% of success rate. But now the accuracy rate can be more than 99% at best, but for identical twins, the rate is a bit lower. But with training or agentic AI, maybe it can help us increase the success rate of identical twin identification. So we want to use AI to generate value in business processes in different stages of the video journey by considering industry needs, regulatory constraints, compliance needs so that law-abiding corporate citizens can really successfully adopt AI to combat malicious actors. And ultimately, we can leverage AI to enhance the credibility of web services. So credibility is the key word here because we're in the business video conferencing space. So if we want to consider each and every step of the video journey, well, things will get really difficult. We definitely need good regulations in this area. Thank you.
每天接触很
Thank you very much, Mr. Hong.
需要那
Thank you very much for your presentation. You told us what is currently possible and what will become possible in the future. Thank you very much. So we just talk about governance framework. We talk about content. We talk about service applications. But now we'd like to switch gear. We'd like to talk about human rights protection and data protection because we are really running behind. So please try to complete your presentation within 8 minutes so we can at least leave some time for one question. Well, I'm in full agreement with the other two panelists. I think when we talk about AI governance, we know that we don't have all the tools we need. So I'd rather talk about internet governance. Although a lot of attention has been focused on development of AI, however, things such as facial recognition, predictive learning models. Previously in Taiwan, not only we already had that kind of technology, but we had already have a lot of discussions. And in the morning session, there was a question asked about the fact that 40 years ago, when it comes to facial recognition, the human rights organization put a demand on the government that the government needs to conduct a comprehensive survey to see whether there is any legislation shortcomings. But right now, the government has yet to come up with a report. Therefore, facial recognition is not something new, and we haven't come up with a good solution for that yet when it comes to governance. And let me start with what I'm personally responsible for. We not only need to abide by international human rights guidelines, we realize that we need to begin with risk assessment. Not only we need to do risk assessment for human rights. Human Rights Basic Act was passed. Therefore, there was a new requirement by the government to assess risks when it comes to protection for young children, women, and minority groups. And but the problem is in the method with which we want to carry out the assessment. We believe that we are still lagging behind. We really need to come up with better methods for carrying out the risk assessment. For example, right now we don't have a regulation about how to assess whether personal information is being adequately protected. And recently, a lot of personal information have been used by a cell phone app, which is a navigation app, and people are concerned. A lot of personal information has been used by that app, but so far the government hasn't come up with anything trying to regulate or supervise that type of behavior. And in terms of cross-border transmission of information, we do have some regulation which can ban the transmission of personal information to other places such as mainland China. For example, back in the day, there was the Apple Daily that became the focus of litigation. And when it was happening, the government came up with a policy to forbid personal information from being transmitted out of Taiwan. So when it comes to personal information protection, I do believe we need to begin with the source. In other words, we need to try to make it impossible for AI system to collect personal information from the source. We talk about the Personal Data Protection Act. Although we do have that kind of legislation, but it hasn't been fully implemented. For example, National Health Insurance Database, and right now it's courts being adjudicated in the court. For my personal medical records. Can I require that without obtaining my consent, my personal medical information shouldn't be used by any other party? And so we hope that we can add one more right, and that is our right to be informed, and then we have the right to give consent in terms of whether we agree our medical information to be utilized. And but there are companies trying to develop agentic AI system trained by medical records, medical information. For example, there's a known case where hospitals were working with Google, and the hospital was providing information of their diabetic patient to Google in order to train that kind of AI system. But we can try to install a mechanism, and that is people can give their consent dynamically, because it's already possible. Because in Taiwan, we have decentralized legal framework. So when it comes to accountability and transparency, obviously the government promised to come up with transparency report detailing all the petitions and how the petitions were addressed. For example, there is anti-scam legislation. And when it comes to stealing personal account information, there already were some built-in relief. But the problem is not all government agencies know what the reliefs are. So there's law, but it's not fully implemented. That's the problem. So finally, Taiwan is having a conversation about Social Order Preservation Act. Right now, it's still just a draft, and it talks about rumors. So the term used by this draft is rumors, not misinformation or disinformation. And according to the proposal, there needs to be something done with regards to hate speech, because we want to minimize the harm caused by hate speech. And the Social Stability Preservation Act, the police can apprehend an individual or penalize an individual based on their own discretion. So I believe that that shouldn't be the way we go about this. I think we need to generate more conversations so that we can build a consensus in terms of how we can make sure we protect everybody's human rights. Thank you very much. You talk about personal data and the governance framework for how we supervise the online environment. And Mr. Wang talked about content governance. Well, right now, there are still many missing pieces because we are still at the very early day of building a comprehensive governance framework. Well, we've already run out of all the time we had, but because we already made a promise, we will accept one question.
But I will leave one question on side. There is one gentleman on queue. Then you can think a few sentences. I will let you concluded your take-home message today later. Okay? Then I will ask the gentleman to raise his question. Thank you.
Okay. Actually, this the question. This is Gove Wu and TWIGF. And I think I try to make it short. We know the garbage in and garbage out. How we can define the quality of the data and build a good database, because that is critical, particularly for the AI. And also, how you expect the government regulator can help you to build a trustworthy AI.
So the question goes to Miriam, right? Okay. So Miriam, you can answer the question, then make your conclusion today, okay? Thank you.
Sure. Well, since we have little time, why don't I focus on the second part of the question, because I really believe strongly in the importance of regulatory dialogue with industry. We've seen this with DSA in Europe and with regulators around the world. It really helps us to build understanding and share perspectives. So that's something we want to lean into, both so we can hear about concerns, but also share our experiences and approaches. And we've got, as I said, decades of experience in information quality using technology tools and programs to help ensure that the content that reaches our users is authoritative and high quality, and we'll continue to invest in that space. So thank you.
Yeah, and to the question, do you have some answer to the question the gentleman raised? How to build up the trustworthy, what are you looking for the government to make some regulation to build up some kind of trustworthy AI?
I think it's an ongoing dialogue for how we do it. So at Google, we have established our governance frameworks for every stage of the life cycle of an AI system. So when we're training a model, when we're bringing that model to users, we continue to test and refine and get feedback and improve over time. And again, that will be part of the regulatory dialogue, and we can share our experiences and hear back from others.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your answer and the conclusion. 那我们现场的几位也是可以
Thank you very much for your question, for your response. And I would like to go to the other panelists for their response to the question. Well, my answer is very straightforward. We need to work together with the government. We believe the soft power represented by AI is something Taiwan needs to take very seriously. Well, you talk about garbage in, garbage out. So I would like to come back to medical records, because national health insurance records or medical records, they are being utilized without the prior consent of the patient. But those records probably are not very accurate. Why? Well, because even if the patient knows there are some mistakes in their records, because sometimes when the doctor writes prescription, he's probably in a hurry. Therefore, it's not very accurate. If we want to build something that contains accurate, to-the-minute information, again, we need to create a dynamic informed consent type of mechanism. So if you want to do research with medical records of the individual patient, then you need to build a mechanism. While you do your analysis dynamically, the patient should be able to give their informed consent. I do believe this is just the beginning of more discussions to come. because there are already many topics we need to address when it comes to internet governance. With the addition of AI, we believe the discussion will become even more complicated. On a daily basis, we will be receiving a lot of different content, and also we need to make sure we protect everybody's rights. So these are all very important and relevant issues when it comes to building a good governance framework. So I would like to thank all panelists. Some of them are on site. Miriam is online. Again, this is something we need to generate more discussions on going forward. That concludes our session. Thank you.
谢谢詹婷董事长，我们主持这个场次，最后邀请所有的语坛讲者来一起合影一张。是不是请我们的台上的讲者起身，稍微往中间靠近一些，我们来拍一张大合照。And to wrap up the session, we would like to invite our panelists to join us for a group photo. So for our speaker who is joining us virtually, Miriam, simply look into the camera and on my count with a big smile. All right? 3, 2, 1, a big smile. One more photo. Thank you very much for your participation. 谢谢我们这个场次所有的语坛人，还有谢谢主持人，再次感谢。